Well, I haven't been posting as much lately. I've been busy. Lots of physical therapy for my mom. That's always a good thing. Last couple days, not so much because she's been so worked out. She's been physically exhausted. So we gave her a couple days off. Today I did a full walk. We'll call it a few hundred feet uphill, literally. So did that today. I told her she needed to do a full walk since the last 2 days she took that time off. So that's probably not the primary thought that's been on my mind over the last couple days as I pondered what I wanted to talk about next. Some dozen years or so ago, I had an incident, and only some of it was witnessed. Some friends, now it got, well, they were a couple then, but they weren't married yet. The narrative they were told about what happened is what they were led to believe happened. What they don't understand, because they only witnessed the second half of what happened, is a false narrative, because the owner of the bar with the cameras knows genuinely what happened. So we are talking about a bar fight here. Some dozen or so years ago, I have to think about exactly what year that was. I don't know, 2015, 2014, something like that. Anyway, we're all locals. We've all never left town. Found ourselves plopped at the picnic, I guess you could call it a picnic table at the back patio of a coffee shop. They gave me the awkwardest energy. And now, me being the intuitive, I knew where their mind is. I didn't bring it up because they had their toddler of a child, maybe a couple years older than that. And it would have been an intense, I know I'm an intense individual. I know I intimidate. Not that I'm brilliant, not that I'm incredibly articulate, but there's an intensity with me. And I don't need their child freaking out or anyone's couples thinking that I'm going to start screaming. I have no idea, but I know that I'm intense. So when there's kids around and I want to have a serious conversation, I'm going to bite my tongue. So anyway, their energy was very weird. I know they aren't impressed with what they think happened. I'm frustrated because I want them to know what happened. Now, I'm wondering if I have a personal flaw because it's bothered me so long, so much for so long. And really, it's not so much ego, it's about my reputation that's been marred in my hometown. If my reputation wasn't on the line, or if everyone knows the truth about what happened, I don't think this would have bothered me. I don't think over the years, the dozen or more years that this has been, this isn't something that would be floating around in my mind. I don't know if I'm bothered because of a personal flaw, or it's because I am bothered by my reputation being marred. Now, at the time we were hanging out together, I have both of their phone numbers. I could call them up and decide or ask them what they think. Because our conversation was very short, and they didn't seem genuinely interested in what I was up to. They're turned off because they think I started a bar fight. I've been sitting on a really bad review because I've recognized my reputation is based on a narrative that's been falsely spread across the neighborhood. I've been sitting on it because I understand that most negative reviews are Karens with narcissistic tendencies. That's not me. I've sat on it in part because of that, but also in part because it would be so detrimental in a public forum. I've had a couple conversations with a couple acquaintances that I've known over the 10 to 15 years or so. You know how they say, if it feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, don't. Well, it feels icky. I fantasized about posting it, and it's articulate. And it would be almost mean. I feel like the bully because I'm articulate and able to tell the truth and humiliate. Now, am I taking the high road by holding back? Or do I have self-worth issues in not having the confidence to post the truth? I'm really genuinely interested. If you comment, let me know what you think, because I don't know what I should do, since after a dozen or more years, this is still on my mind, and it's fresh on my mind because this meeting of my, well, let's just call them former friends, was only days ago. So now it's, every time this happens, I come up with this weird interaction because there's 50 people. We would all drink together. I occasionally come up on one of them or two of them, because a lot of them are couples, and they give me the weirdest look. I'd love to have a chat with them. And that's the other thought. I don't know exactly what they've been told, but I have a suspicion that they've been given more than one narrative. Everyone knows, or most people understand, if you have two narratives from one person, someone's fibbing. They're afraid of the narrative I have to offer, and I'm thinking that's why a lot of my friends or acquaintances or whatever you want to call them, beer buddies, they haven't bothered because they don't want to hear what I have to say. Or people are kind of weak in general and they're not strong enough to have a difficult conversation. These are all the thoughts that have been floating around in my head. So there's a good 20 or more people with whose phone numbers are in my contacts, or hundreds, you could say, in my Facebook account. I could Facebook message and have these conversations with. But why does it bother me? I don't know why, other than recognizing my reputation's been marred based on a non-truth. If I started the fight, there's no way I can get out of it. But the fact is, people are thinking of me based on a false narrative. I think the statistic says psychologists, the statistic as by psychologists' standards, or whatever they say, is that most people only mature to about the age of 8. That was not the most eloquent way to speak, but yeah, most of us as adults are a bunch of 8-year-olds walking around. So my reputation was spewed by an 8-year-old. I think now he's some 55 years old, about 10 years older than I have no idea. Well, yeah, I do have an idea. That's around how old he is. But think about that. When people do stupid things, it's not necessarily they lack an IQ. It's that they lack a maturity. Between the maturity, the neuroticism, and then maybe a little bit of IQ, but we're all stupid when you take away, or you add anxiety and you take away maturity. So now I'm sitting here wondering what I should do with this. I don't know what I want to do with it, because I don't know if the right thing to do is to publicly humiliate, or if taking the high road means shutting up, recognize that you've been ostracized across a populace of 50 or 100 acquaintances, and deal with the fact that occasionally you're going to be looked at funny, literally. Meaning when you make eye contact. That's how I mean it, literally. Does it bother me because of a flaw? Or does it bother me because I'm being defamed based on a false truth because of someone else's insecurities? Part of the story I didn't tell is that when I left after finishing that fight, I chose to come back like 2 weeks later. When I came back, the lead bartender at the time says, "You have to have a conversation before I'm allowed to serve you again." That pissed me off. Maybe normally I would be okay with that conversation, but those environments are not legally allowed to function without a working camera. So I can tell you with a fair amount of confidence, the owner of the bar knows what happened, and I didn't start it. The thug that backhanded me as we both left at the same time, literally backhanded me, didn't really hurt me that bad. Gave me a bloody nose. It was enough to bloody me up, but it didn't hurt to the point where I was gushing and on my knees or any of that. In fact, what happened is he got scared, realized what he did was something he probably shouldn't have done. And this was closing time. We were closing the bar. He ran for the bar. There was probably 10 to 15 of us left. That couple was one of them. So anyway, he squeezed himself in between several people. He also had long hair, and he thought he was safe. So I took my good hand, wrapped it. I knew I didn't want to hurt him. I am a stroke victim. Half my body is a whole lot less strong than my left good side. I used my good side to just give him a nice good sideways lateral tug. So as he stumbled, he kind of tripped over a couple stools, and it was loud because no one knew me to be this sort of behavior. So you could hear a pin drop when it stopped. But I still laugh because when he yelled, it was like a loud, oh, I don't know how to describe it. It was like a, ah! It's not funny when you try to reproduce it. It was funny at the time because it sounded like a broken train horn. So when he kind of got his footing back, he didn't even fall, but it was enough to get his attention, which is really all I wanted. I don't want to go to jail or kill someone or break anything, because if I wanted to hurt someone like that, I potentially could have. I just wanted his attention. You can't put your hands on a stroke victim. I called him a thug as we were both leaving. The reason I called him a thug is because I'm the local solopreneur. I've been a self-employed IT guy for, well, tech guy we'll call it, because the job he was hired to do was actually a very small AV job where manual labor was involved. And you can't really hang TVs, even with two good hands, one person. So that's the gist of that. Short story, 3 years earlier, I hired him to help me install some AV equipment. He sabotaged the work. He made me look like an idiot to the guy who hired us. So he stole the referral I already knew we had coming. The owner of that home gave him the referral directly. I don't know exactly what the vernacular was between them, but that has to have been what happened. So anyway, at the bar, 3 years pass. I called the guy a thug because we were in close proximity. Our transaction happens. As I leave, you could hear a pin drop. I walked slowly out the door, didn't even look back, left him kind of standing there like an idiot, and everyone kind of said whatever they said. Now I know everyone there saw me grab that guy. What no one there saw was him backhanding me a minute earlier. I know the universe set this up. I knew this was going to play out the way it has. Now, at the time, I was in the shower cleaning up my face an hour or two later. I knew what I could have said was, "How dare you hit me at the door?" Because then everyone would have understood, oh, well, that's why Chris did that. He didn't just randomly grab the guy. He was backhanded. Now, something in me kept me from speaking. I think a little bit of it was disgust. I think a bit of it was anger. And a little bit of it was recognizing consciously that silence is power. It makes a statement. So anyway, 2 weeks after that happened, the owner, the lead bartender tells me I have to have a chat with the owner before I'm allowed to be served. That pissed me off. Now, me knowing, recognizing this, I'm mulling this over in my head over several days. I recognize there's a camera that knows exactly what happened. I know that these cameras are a legal requirement. I know that the camera has, ironically, the technology is there to save the back of the tech guy. Didn't install those cameras, by the way. I do occasionally do that. In fact, I've got a quote impending. So we'll see if we get that. But anyway, that pissed me off. After several days, weeks, months pass, the more and more I mull it over, the more pissed off I got. The more I realized, and in fact, I've had this conversation with friends and acquaintances. They all agree that me being the disabled guy should not have to explain finishing a fight. And that's exactly how we got to here today. All because all I had to say right away is, this asshole hit me. So anyway, 2 years later, I come back. The owner sees me, looks like a scared little kid, an 8-year-old. A narrative has been spread across his top 50, top 100 or so. I was a daily regular for more than 4 years. So even though I wasn't the most lucrative of customers, sometimes I just have a ginger beer that's $3 or $4 because I don't necessarily want to have alcohol. But I do enjoy the social aspect. So not the most lucrative, but because I worked literally a block away, I lived 3 or 4 blocks away, I was there very often. So what do you think happened? The owner, recognizing my absence, probably was asked by the other regulars, haven't seen Chris in a week or 2 or 4 or 12. So now what? He's got to come up with a narrative. Now, there's a few things that could have been said. That guy and I, we had that issue. That didn't get resolved. He never paid me back. And I've eventually realized he's a narcissist and a sociopath, and he doesn't care about being shamed or called an idiot, or if I screw with his reputation, it's a shoulder shrug and they move to another town. They're not genuinely butthurt. They just realize they have to move on. So, there is more to this story. I think I want to save that content for another video because it's a different aspect. It's a different part of the story. Because what I'm talking about now is an unrelated topic. It directly relates to the fact that my reputation has been screwed with. Someone can remind me in the comments later. Hey, remember when you said there was another part of that story about when you got backhanded? So make a mental note, make an actual note in the comments, whatever. But anyway, 2 years later, I show up. Scared owner of the bar is looking at me, clearly kind of, what am I supposed to do? Because there's a narrative some 50 plus people have. He doesn't know what I know, but he knows that I'm ethically straight. And he probably understands I'm more about ethics than most. Not that most people are unethical, but because I'm one of those truth tellers or truth seekers in life. So now he's stuck. He can't welcome me back despite being told if I just had a conversation, I'd be welcomed back. So what really happened is he said, oh, well my bartender's afraid of you. My lead bartender. I'm not naming names on purpose. This was a different bartender. But anyway, so you can't be here anymore. Which is stupid because I was still potentially welcomed before if I had just granted that conversation 2 years earlier. But because I allowed 2 years to pass, a narrative had been formed that is not the truth. I'm not welcome back now because the narrative that's been created doesn't work with me being there. So whatever was said is not the truth. And I wonder if that's partly why some of these friends of mine are uncomfortable. They're smart people. They're not necessarily too weak to have a conversation with me. They probably already know that they probably heard more than one narrative because they've had one narrative 1 month after I didn't show up. They probably heard another narrative a year later because originally no one assumed I would actually ditch the place. And now here we are, 15 years, 2014 maybe. That many years later, I'm still thinking about it because we still rub shoulders out and about, and suddenly I'm getting weird behavior. And now I'm wondering what I'm supposed to do with this. Is this the universe or my body, my chemistry, my physiology telling me this is unparched, unprocessed trauma? I mean, I wasn't physically damaged. I wasn't traumatized. It was not a traumatizing fight. I literally laughed and chuckled as I heard him roar as I dragged him across the stools. So the fact of the matter is, potentially hundreds of people have a false narrative that has been shared by someone who's running a business in my hometown. They were not born and raised in this town. So now I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I had a high school buddy I was going to have a chat with, and she's busy raising her family. She'll get around to me, but we're the exact same age by about 6 days. Spread apart by about 6 days. That's what I wanted to say. So yeah, I don't know what I want to do with this. I have had a couple conversations with people, and a couple of those conversations, it sounds like they don't spend a whole lot of time there either. Like, there's one acquaintance that now spends time at a different brewery. And it's every time I go in there, which is maybe a couple times a month, he's in there. So I'm just kind of thinking to myself, well, why don't you go to where we both were? So I don't know what sort of character flaws I'm dealing with, but I'm genuinely curious about my own because I don't know why this is still bothering me. In fact, 2 weeks ago, before I had rubbed shoulders with my friends for the first time in a couple years, it was the look they gave me that is now riled up and reignited these thoughts and the intensity. I have their phone numbers. I could call them and see what they think. But now I'm still wondering, why is this bothering me so much? Is it my reputation? Why do I care so much about what people I'm not terribly close with think of me? I might speak more of this. It's been a half hour. I haven't spoken this long in a while on YouTube. So I might revisit this transaction later. But it's all I can immediately transact right now because I'm finding myself repeat. So, but yeah, go ahead and have some comments. I've thought about having this conversation earlier. I just didn't know how to articulate it or present it. But now that it's fresh, because it's partially powered by emotion or passion, um, we'll just have to see. Obviously, I've been very patient. I don't really want to post a public review that tells the truth because it would be devastating. I don't want to screw with someone's income because it potentially could. I actually fantasized about how if the place closed down anytime in the future, that I would then post it because there's no income to screw up. But that now I've got my story out in the public. It potentially could screw with my income because someone might be less inclined to hire me. But that's not really what I'm that worried about. I just don't like my reputation being screwed with. So, wow. Go ahead, share your vernacular, comment, let me know what you think. I'm curious. I'm genuinely reaching out. Thanks.